Good evening again. Steve here. I was at a coffee chat this evening, and coffee chat is a live discussion forum where we share ideas on improving the quality of our lives with an attempt to keep to a certain topic for the evening. And the topic for the evening was philosophy. And philosophy, uh, I didn't think it would be a very interesting topic for most people. And sure enough, there was just slightly over half the people who would normally be there. And normally we go around the room at the beginning to do introductions and to give our opening comments of what we thought about the topic. And this time there was like a whole series of people in a row that said their name and then pass, 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 pass. And then finally, I think philosophy is boring. And so there wasn't a whole lot of input right from the get-go. In fact, of the 14 people that were there was only a small majority, less than a handful, who actually admitted to having a concept of what philosophy actually is. So that was one thing that was kind of interesting. So maybe it wasn't the right discussion for coffee chat, but it was, I think, something very important, because if philosophy is anything, if it is a systematic way of directing our thoughts to be able to judge whether something is correct or incorrect, then I would say it's a very important thing for improving the quality of our life experience. I mean, we can get scammed, we can get railroaded, we can get sucked into all kinds of nonsense if we don't have a rigorous way of discerning one way or the other. So I think it is important. But with an interesting observation there, and this is an observation that we can make anywhere in society, is the variety of people, all the way from quite rational to quite faith-based, or quite assertive-based, or quite conjecture-based, or opinion-based. That very wide, and then everybody in between. So we had actually, I even saw a spark of emotion, which went from somebody from both sides of that spectrum. And, we usually don't encourage at coffee chat debate and that sort of throwback at somebody's sharing an idea. But I could see the distance, but also the challenge that one side could be to the other, and that was definitely there. So it was a challenge, though, because I found, because of that wide schism. Because, it's on a broader topic like health or something like that. We have a greater first principle in a way. We can all recognize that we all want it. So it attracts a larger group, and people can become quite agreeable on it. If you get something into philosophy, it challenges people's core assumptions and superstitions and so on. So it can have it can be a cause for a schism in a group, I think, that sort of discussion. But nevertheless, I did recognize the very possibility of being able to, as a moderator, be able to stand at that threshold between those two, that wide divide, and to recognize the possibility of friendship in spite of that great difference of viewpoint. And, have a discussion and to recognize within ourselves that wide divide, yet still be able to part in an evening, being okay with that, and being okay with, not seeing eye to eye, and not actually knowing what the other one is really, really talking about. I mean, from somebody who's purely conjecture-based or superstitious or whatever, it's very difficult to see the philosophical point of view, because there can be a blinder go up to not want to really see the value of logic. And of course, from the philosophical standpoint, it's very difficult sometimes if one hasn't been there on the faith side of things or the conjecture side of things, to be able to see the value in it on a consistent basis. I think it's probably a little bit easier for the philosophical side to see it, simply because very often people who are philosophical have come from that. They've grown up in families and so on who were like that, and they were like that themselves. I would be one of those, as an example. Was very faith-based for much of my life, and still am to a great extent. But I see the value of the philosophical as well. But I think it's difficult for people who are hard and fast to one way or hard and fast to the other to see the value in either side. I think there's value in either side. But tonight we were talking about the philosophical, and I found that it was difficult for the people who were faith-based to set that aside momentarily and look at the value of the talents that we have in terms of our mentality and ability to discern, our ability to break things down in logical constructs and understand, very similar to a scientific way, basic things in life. I think it seems to be very difficult. And therefore, there has never been much look at the philosophical approach, and therefore the lack of real understanding as to what philosophy is and the value it has. I don't know if this has helped the quality of life of many. I think it has for me. I was able to see that divide very clearly and just let it be okay. Care and value people either way, one side or the other. What do you think? What do you think is the value of philosophy? Is it a valuable thing to pursue in today? I think it is as important today as it always has been. Maybe more important today, because today is the only importance that there is, right? So, if you got any comments, put them down below, and I'd be glad to read them. All the best. My name is Steve. Talk to you later. Bye.